All righty, it is time for Jason's thoughts, and we have a returning guest for his third time. Hassan, welcome to the vlog. Thanks for coming back. How have you been?
I've been well, man. Thank you so much for having me again, Jason. I hope I'm not bombarding your feed
Heck
with
no,
my face, but honestly, man, I love our conversations, and I
me
genuinely look
too.
forward to the next one. So thank you for having me back, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Like I honestly, I mean it when I say it. It's just been great to connect with you, and I don't know, it just seems so easy, and I feel always like I've taken something away from our combos, and I feel great. I have this like high from our combos afterwards, and always leaves me smiling. My cheeks usually are hurting after as well, so I appreciate you for always coming back.
Thanks, man. Honestly, I think I was talking to someone today in relation to you, and I was like, any time with Jason is good earned time. So,
Yeah,
it truly
likewise.
is a pleasure, man. It truly is a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Well, I like, we've definitely had some conversations beyond this vlog, and one of them recently, we just came up. You found out that I have partaken in the Movember event, which, for anybody that doesn't know, it's a charity for men's health and men's mental health. This is my 13th year doing it, and I kind of shared my whys that I do it. I lost one of my best friends, when we were in our 30s, our very young 30s, and it was a bit of an awakening for me. But not to dwell on that, but it stimulated our conversation for today, which was about friends, like what constitutes, a friend, and what are some of the things that we feel are important in our friends. And so I love this topic because I'm super passionate about it, and I can't wait to kind of unpack further with some of those thoughts. So why don't you kick us off? Where do you want to start us with this friends combo?
Absolutely, man. There's three little proverbs I have to sort of get us going, and I'd love to sort of dissect your thoughts there. And honestly, before I begin, just a note on Movember. It's a beautiful month, and definitely a lot of great awareness that comes about with it. And even last year, sorry, not last year, in 2020, I too lost a friend in October to mental
Wow.
health, and he was, yeah, Private Michael William Furtis. He was in the armed forces, serving his country, and he was in Canada, but just with COVID and everything, how it started off. So as you shared your story of your friend, it really sort of honed in on, yeah, man, I can totally relate to that. I used to wrestle with him. He's a 20-year-old enthusiastic guy, and yeah, man, mental health is very important. Health is just important all around, and so beautiful month. And for those of you watching, please do check out Jason's page on it. The link will be provided, and please, yeah, it's a really beautiful beautiful celebration. And with that, we'll sort of migrate to friends and the proverbs that come with it. So the first proverb is on friends having a scent that reflects on you. So there's a proverb of a man that walks through a garbage dump. He doesn't touch anything, doesn't sample anything, but he simply walks through this area. And as he's walking, people smell the dump and they're keeping away from this man. The same man walks through a flower or perfume shop, doesn't sample anything, is simply walking through, and people are then invited to be near him. And that proverb is meant to reflect the company you keep around you. So if you keep around, ill company, even though you may not be doing or behaving in the same manner, they have a reflection on you. And when you're around
Mhm.
good people, you may not be engaging or conversing the way they are. They have this reflection. And so the company you keep and the friends you keep. So that's sort of one proverb. And the
Yeah.
second two are on, these are 14th century philosophers, and this was their hard litmus test of friendship. So the first man was Umar bin Khattab. This man you can actually find in a book by Daniel Hartman, The 100 Influential People in the World. He's number 40. And he was the first man that started the child tax benefits 1,400 years ago. He's the founding father.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's actually in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He coined the phrase, "How can you enslave a man who was born free?" So he's an incredible figure in history. He said on friendship, you cannot deem a friend unless you've tried them in three. Number one, traveling with them. Number
Ah,
two,
yes.
entrusting them with an item or object with a trust. And number three, a financial exchange. Unless you've had these three things, you can't really consider this person a genuine friend. Um, and the other person was Ali bin Abi Talib, and his was more philosophical, where he said there's three times to a friendship is tested: in your presence, behind your back, and at the time of your death.
Wow.
That's where the quality of your friends will come in. And so naturally, you and I will probably have our own definitions, but some of them may fall within either umbrella, right? Whether
Yeah.
friends have these, make us, around them we feel great, or we've tried them in these moments, or hey, like this person's spoken good about me behind my back, whatever have you. But Jason's thoughts. What is your definition of friendship? Like, what do you look for in a friend? What do you value in a friend? And at what stage do you consider this as a friend of mine?
Mm. Well, first I'm going to start off with my condolences to you for your loss as well. We didn't talk about that, and heart goes out to him and you and his family. That's definitely heartbreaking. But again, what better reason to have Movember so we can talk about these things. So thanks for opening up about that too. Um, and I love the proverbs, and I took some notes as we went around. And you know what makes a friend? Man, it's deep for a lot of things. I think for me, the first one that you brought up was trust. um, you know, Trust goes so many ways. If you're in a circle of trust, or you have a great group around you that you feel, it's not going to leave this conversation, that gives you a huge opportunity to open up and be real, right? You're in a safe environment. So when we talk about men's mental health, um, you know, a lot of uh, men, including myself, that I'm still trying to get through in life is like, we were brought up to be tough, just shut up, crying, you can't cry, you're a man, like toughen up, all these kind of things. And um, I think to get to a state where we need to go, which is to be able to open up, it is to be able to reach out to each other and share your mental health, or physical health too, right? I mean, mental health is something that you can't always see. I think to get there, if you have a great circle of trust, it's more likely that you can open up about these things, right? And so um, I really feel like trust is foundational. Um, and I think trust, you for me, I give everybody the same level of trust going in, right? So even if this is a new person that I'm starting to talk with, I might not get to a very high level of vulnerability, but I'm going to give them a certain level of trust, and trust continues to be earned as the relationship continues to grow, which can get me into a state of vulnerability. So for me, I think trust is massive within a friendship. Um, to me, I also agree with travel. I've traveled slightly with some of my friends, and I think it's a true test of friendship because not that my travel has been very extreme or long distances or anything like that, but it tends to always be there's a breaking point within travel. There's a stress point. And I recall one time, well before GPS was as common as it is now, where we were very lost in a very big city, and we were traveling in two separate cars because there was a bigger group of us. And I was driving one of the cars, my friend was driving the other, and I think we got very pissed off with each other at some point along the way. And And yeah, I don't think we were talking for the rest of the day, maybe even a couple days. We were so pissed off, but um, from that, we did have to kiss and make up and get over ourselves. And from that, I've never fought another day in my life with him. So I think trust is one of those things that I really really value, and I think it's definitely the quality, right? Like in this world, you're right. Like social, I'll be really transparent. My Facebook might have 70 people on it, like maybe. And out of those 70 people, like it is my family and my friends. That is it. If and so not to say social is quality, not to say that, but I like to share to that friend group, my family, and but when my friends do get together, like it's almost like cell phones don't exist anymore, right? Like you go out for dinner. My friends, we're kind of all over the country, and we always do our best to meet up for Super Bowl every year. That's kind of our like, let's make sure we get together at least once a year around this. But when we do get together, it's like you know, there's no cell phone to be found. It's just literally let's catch up, let's talk. Even though we're on social media, it's like no, let's get into it. And so it might not be a lot of visiting or a lot of hangouts like every day, but when you do get those moments, it's like grade A quality. It just we're having a good time, we're focused on each other, we're catching up, and to me, I really really cherish those moments more, because they're far and few between. So that's a couple of my thoughts around value and friends and things that I think are really important.
That's amazing, man. And there's so many like big points that you speak to, right? Like the key buzzwords I find is like the quality of time and the quality of friendship. I was laughing at the story you shared because I think anybody watching this, I think, can relate to like a friend's trip that's like that, where it starts off great, yeah, the music's bumping, and you just need one thing of conflict to just throw it all on its head. And you're driving, no one's talking, and someone's kind of grunting or just it's,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
can totally relate to that. And one of the things I found that in what you mentioned was when you have really good friends that live abroad and that you don't really get to see often, the commitment of the annual meeting, right? So
yeah,
like one of the things like that you're sort of touching on that I really resonate with, it's the consistency and effort that goes into maintaining these relationships, but also when the time is there to make it the quality time. Like I think it's great instinctively you guys put your phones away, but sometimes you have it where you look forward to meeting someone and they're just sort of on their phone when you meet with them. And granted, they may have things they need to address in their life and what
yeah,
have you, but it
yeah,
almost takes away from the short amount of time you truly do have.
yeah,
So I think it's beautiful that when you guys do meet when the Super Bowl, it's like no one's really on their phone. Everyone's just immersed in that congregation and just really having that time. So I think it's the quality really extends to not just the friends, but what you're doing during the time you're with those friends as well.
yeah, yeah. And I think too, having like expectations of with your friend group too is important. Like you have to be like on the same page, right? Like my group, we've gone from, junior high school essentially into our mid ages, and um, through it, we were, going through school together, so you see each other all the time. Then you keep growing up and you have wife and kids or a partner or spouse, and you move, you change, and so you kind of splinter out. But I think if you can find people, because I'm not like super high needs, like I don't need someone to text me every 3 days or 5 days or once a week or whatever. Um, I think if you can find those similar uh, types as well, so that they're not expecting that out of you, it makes the relationship a lot easier because I have had friends that are more like engaged, right? And I'm just like, oh man, I feel bad. I don't have the time, and so I'm like, ugh. And then I sadly sometimes shrug them off a little bit because I just can't match to what they're
Mm.
looking for. So I find, some of my friends, I have shedded some friends through the years because I couldn't match what their expectations of a friendship were, with connection. I'm kind of a low maintenance type, and we're on one group chat all together, and every once in a blue moon, someone posts something funny or someone posts something silly, or we're happen to be a couple of us watching a football game at the same time, so we start, maybe two of us are going off just shooting the breeze about the game and how horrible it is or how great it is or whatever. But I think if you can find those like feels, because I have some great friends too that I love them for their engagement, right? Like they want to hang out, they want to go for coffee more, they want to see me on a more regular basis, um, but they're kind of over this side, and versus
Mhm.
this group that's all we're all kind of the same mindset. It's like, yo, if it happens, it happens. We'll see each other when we see each other. But I think it's really important to have like-minded uh, feelings about what the connection level is like, for longevity. I think that really helps.
100%. It's actually interesting, man. There was a marriage counselor who was talking about like the number one reason for divorce rates was like unmet expectations, like
Mm,
more than any other reason you can think of. And like, there's a classic example of like and this it speaks to like the like there's a man who has a promotion at work, so he's coming home ready to take his spouse out for dinner, super excited. So he has his expectation he's going to go home and take her and the kids out for dinner. Gets home, she's on the couch watching TV, the kids are running around, and the house is a mess. He's upset. She
mm,
has been sick all day. She's
uh,
expecting her husband to come home with soup because she coughed this morning and she didn't look the best. Clearly, he must have picked up on this. So when he
yeah,
comes home and sees the kids running around, he'll instinctively drop what he's doing and give a hand. But neither one of them communicate what the other is sort of going through. So when they meet, it's this unmet expectation, which cascades into bigger and bigger fights. And I feel like in this scenario, yeah, sure, it's about a married couple, but I feel like those expectations extend even among friends as
yes,
well, right?
100%.
And to your point, where if that expectation isn't established, where it's like, hey, I'll sort of see you when I see you, and like, and whereas it's like there's this almost underlying commitment of, oh, like he said we'll hang out soon. Did that mean tomorrow? Does that mean now? So I,
Yeah,
I find the parallels really really interesting in how the expectations can almost set the cadence and tone of the friendship.
yeah. I Relationships are relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really cool perspective and view on it, because um, it's true, right? And I think it does absolutely correlate to some of your friendships. What is expected from this, and if you're not seeing the same things, then yeah, you're probably gonna end up breaking up or divorcing or whatever the case may be, right? Unfortunately, so that's pretty cool. Now, I'm gonna turn it to you too. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on what's really important to you in your friendships.
One of the coolest things that I learned over the years was so a little bit about myself. I in my earlier years, in my teen years, I used to hate silence. Silence was is
Mm.
almost a fear, like being quiet in a scenario. Like Martha, my mom used to get pissed off because she'd be like, "You don't have to talk all the time, man. Like you don't have to fill the space." So there'd be many moments that just if there's silence, I would just step in to fill the space, and she's like, "You don't have to do that, right?" And I remember I came across this one friend, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced comfortable silence where
Mm.
they were doing their thing, I was doing my thing, but we were just around each other.
Yeah.
And the time still felt incredible and very, like it didn't feel like any space had to be filled with nonsense or chatter. It was just a state of comfort. So one of the things I start to look for among anybody in my company is, can I endure silence with you? You know, speaking
Mm.
on things, I can think of a million things to talk about. Oh, did you know rhinos going extinct? What? Like, I can fill space. That's not a challenge for me. But
Yeah.
the challenge comes from, is there a sort of quiet that you can appreciate with your friend? And the other element, when I do meet people, there's an element of trust that is there. And mostly, I'm not a complex guy. There's not much to hide. Like, you know, you're not gonna like, oh, was there another layer to Hassan? There's no onions to Hassan. It's just he is as he is.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the other elements of trust is how come. Oh no,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm
Can you
here.
hear me? Oh,
Yeah,
sweet.
you're
I'm so
good.
sorry.
Yeah.
The other element of the trust and the comfort is, can I'm sorry, I lost my thought for a moment. Sorry, here it is. So when we're together, um, and although I am rather open and I trust you to a degree, how you respond to me will determine what I welcome you into my circle of trust. So for me, my
Mm.
biggest things are my wife and my kid. So
Hmm.
if you're good to my wife and my kid, then you're good to me. Like, this is like my space, right?
Yeah.
Irrespective of how you and I will interact. One thing, I think the Marines have this. Yeah, the Marines have it where I trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? Like, that's their litmus test
Mm.
of their comrades, right?
Yeah.
Because anybody can stick up for you in a moment. Anyone can, like, whether it's you to that individual is one thing, but when you show them, hey, this is what I value, how
Yeah.
do they look after your valuables, and
Yeah.
what you deem valuable? So that's just another litmus test. So number one, it's like the comfortable silence. Number two, it's how do you respect the things that I value? You know, you may not have to agree with the values I have, but do you have a level of respect that I'm comfortable with?
Yeah.
Um, and the last bit of it is it's uh, the ability to overcome adversity. The kind of guy I am, I'm usually the adversity causer. It's just like, oh my god, you're so annoying. I can't believe you said that. But like, if you're comfortable enough to approach me, it's like, hey, Hassan, this irritated me. Oh, I'm so sorry, my bad. And we do that, and we're able to have that. That
Yeah.
is another litmus test of, like, you know what? Okay, if we can continuously have this, and there's a level
Yeah.
of comfort, no resentments, and lack of judgment, and we can move past things, then it just makes things human. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I was in university, I was wrapped up in a friend group, but I was just riding the highs of it, right? Things
Yeah.
were great and what have you. But the second conflict fell, rather than looking for the things of, oh, how do we address it? How do we talk through it? It was just sort of not even addressed. And just as quickly as it did this, it quickly did this as well. Whereas my high school
Yeah.
friends, it's like, yeah, dude, we know you, man. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we know you for what you are and who you are, and we accept you as you are. So that was another learning point of the friends that I keep. And all that I also find is tested within the travel and things like that. Me and my buddy Taz, we traveled this summer, and we had a moment where, you know, the two of us were in this car, and we're driving. It's day two, and it's actually the night before. We were in this cabin, and the walls were paper thin, and
Uh-oh.
the bed that I was on, just, it made a lot of noise. So every time I turned one way and I couldn't find the angle I was sleeping at 2 a.m., he's like, for the love of God, man, just stop moving, go to bed. And the next morning, I was like, hey, man, you good? He's like, dude, what the hell? I was like, hey, man, I'm not used to this bed. Like, I'm used to my, memory foam at home. This is like a blow up mattress. Like, what do you want from me? And
Yeah.
so definitely conflicts that exist. But one of the coolest things about that trip was it was just me and my buddy for 3 days,
Mm.
and we were comfortable with one another throughout the trip of it. And I realized that's something very valuable that I couldn't go away 3 days in the middle of nowhere with just anyone.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
man. Ugh. The bed. It's like, oh yeah. Those are the moments though, right? You're like, I can travel with this person. No worries. We're like to like, we're active or whatever. Like there's similarities. It's those little things. Like all of a sudden you find out someone's a slob in the bathroom and you're like, gross, I'm traveling with this person. Or this person snores, or this person is active in their sleep. They're moving all around, and you just happen to be on a crappy bed, right? this is why travel is a really strong litmus test. It's so true. I can definitely relate with you with the silence too. I am definitely the chatter person in the group. Like and part of it is like that quality and that limited time. I'm like, blah, 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 like get as much out and talk as much as possible and bring up this and bring up that. And then it just, I don't stop. Right. And so, but I do, I have one friend that, these guys are my brothers that, from a different mother, the family that you get to pick. My one friend, he is more of an observer. He's more quiet. And, we've done some traveling together too. And just had some moments that I do like eventually shut off. Like, I think, man, this guy is so tired of hearing about garbage or whatever. And I will shut down. Um, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's just as beautiful as talking, because we just have this comfort level, and whatever the experience might be, grand or small, we're together. And with silence, you feel it more than when there's noise and there's distractions. And I do truly agree with you. Like if you can enjoy it together in silence, it's even richer. Like your relationship is gold at that point.
100%, I mean, and you liken it to, it's like the first time you meet someone, right? And then it's like
Yeah.
the quiet break, and you're like that silence, and it could have been for 3 seconds, but it's those longest 3 seconds out there while you're trying to figure out what to say. But then here
Yeah.
you have this really great buddy, and you guys are driving down. You live out in the West Coast, man, so it's like gorgeous scenery, but you guys could just be driving down this road and just
Yep.
silent for almost an hour as you're driving, but it's this comfort. It's like
Yep.
and to your point, that is something that it can't go understated. And I love the word you use, richness, because it really is like it's a wealth that comes from the relationship for sure.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, and so that's kind of my 2 cents on it, and two. And I think one thing I want to talk about too that you brought up was new friendships, right? Like they can grow really, really fast, and then there are some, I would call them compatibility things that may be like, oh, I really didn't like that, or someone brings something up, and you're like, whoa, this is not the person I thought, and all of a sudden it crashes down just as fast as it was growing. I think those things are still really good to test out, and I love meeting new people. But when you have longevity with your friends too, like this is hard. Like I really truly appreciate my group. Like I swear it's been 30 plus years together. And so for those relationships that don't come crashing down, like they will be on a kind of a different path, right? But the longer the relationship, man, does it, like it just gets richer and richer and richer, because you have more experiences, you've had more stories, you've had more journeys, you've had more ups, you've had more downs, and that tenure as it is, just keeps growing and keeps enriching, and the trust grows further and further beyond expectations. So I really hope for anybody in this world that you have a really, really great friend group, and it continues to last through the test of time, because it just gets better and better and better as the years go on. Now, that's not to say you can't have new friends, but like I said, it's just like if you got 30 years with someone versus 5 years with someone, that person with 30 years, they know you in and out. They've gone to battle with you. They've, you know, maybe you shared a jail cell together at some point. And that's a story that you can always reflect on, whatever the case may be. That new friendship can get there too, but it will always lack 25 years or whatever the variance is. So I really think that if you have those relationships that are long tenured, hold on for dear life, because it's a really special thing, and I think it's often hard to find, with a group.
I'll pose a question to you.
Okay.
So What would you, as Jason, value more? A friend you've had for 30 years, in which you guys endure surface level um, events in your relationship. So, what I mean surface level is you've just known this guy for 30 years. Whenever it's a football game, you've just sort of seen the guy. He's just the
Mm,
eighth man in. That's that one buddy. But you've
yep,
known him the longest, or a friend that you've just made within a year, but this is the person you've undergone like under the trenches with. Like you
yep,
met this guy because you got into a car accident and he just responded to you and then followed up
yep,
with you, and then you guys grew this cultivated relationship. And
yep,
so you have this one person you've known for a year, but it's a deeper, in-depth, sort of qualitative response, and the other friend that you had is more quantitative.
yep.
Which do you lean towards more, and why?
Oh, it's a great question because you exposed, another factoid for sure. It's the one in the trenches all the time, right? Because there are relationships that are surface. Like it's like, hey, how's it going? Let's have a couple beers, chat a little bit. But if it is in those moments, um, that could be short, could be really small, could be, not 30 years that really count, right? For the people that show up. Even it actually almost might be more valuable because of the time that you have known them is shorter and they're already showing their true colors and showing their true signs. Like, I got your back, man. So that's a great question, and had me looking at it a little bit differently. My five friends, we've been through all those trenches and all those things for 30 years. But I do have a lot of new friends and great friends. And now that I reflect on it, I think some of those things have, holy crap, yeah, I've been through some bad times or I've been through some tough times. And that's sticky, right? It's made them stick because we're creating those through, creating that relationship through some of those hard times. So great question for sure.
And honestly, it wasn't even meant to challenge the point of the time and friendship, because I also see the other coin of it where,
Yep.
like, I'll like we'll face it this way, right? Like you're on LinkedIn, and like let's suppose someone you've just known for 30 years but may not talk to frequently
Ever.
reaches out to you and says, hey, Jason, I saw that you have this connection for this opportunity for this role. Can we grab a coffee and talk about it?
Yeah.
Versus a random Joe Schmo who you've never met. It's like, hey, Jason, I'd like to add you on my network. Let's have a coffee. Your inclination would go towards the person you've known longer. So
Yep.
time in and of itself has that value, right?
Yep.
Because it's that familiarity, and you've cared enough to think and reflect and to maintain whatever length or degree of relationship it is, but you've maintained something for 30 years. Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like time is 100% valuable. And that's why the curiosity came. It wasn't to challenge the previous thought at all, because to your point, if you have someone you've been through the trenches with and for that period of time, hold on for dear life. Don't let anything small come in the middle. Like, don't let one bad trip, one bad, air mattress come in the middle of it. Like, whatever it is,
Oh
get over
man.
it, hold on to it. Because to your point, what I find, and I guess this is something I'd like to for you to elaborate on.
Yep.
Do you feel like these friends you've had longer play a role in who you've become, in your roots, in your foundations? Because the way I relate to it is like when I was in university and in my sort of time when I was dropping out and moving towards college, I started hanging out with some of my high school buddies. And when I started hanging out with them, it started to really bring back like the truer version of who I was before I went off to university. And it was just sheer just being in their company. Granted, they hadn't done much since high school, so it was really nice to get back and be there. I'm like, wow, time hasn't passed, because time hadn't passed for them at all. But it was cool to be right back in there, and I felt like, wow, these guys sort of saw me grow up. Like we went to
Yeah.
elementary school, middle school, high school. Like we sort of just grew and matured as men, and then these new friends and mates sort of saw me at this stage, but they saw me here, and it's almost rooted into the fiber of my being. Do you feel like the friends that you've made, the friends that you've had for 30 years plus, or what have they played a role and an impact in the roots of Jason?
Yeah. Oh man, I could almost get emotional on it for sure. Yeah, I mean, uh, I wouldn't know how it would truly define us as a group. Maybe I wouldn't even say misfits, but we were all in different spots. Like I was kind of like a Jovi, like listen to Guns N' Roses and long hair and an artist and a musician. And then I had other friends that were a little bit more clean cut and into sports. And then we had the academics. And we kind of had friends of friends that started connecting a bigger group, but then it started to kind of whittle down into this smaller group, and so some of those connections we made friends through these connections, um, they disappeared. But then we were kind of all together, and we're like, whoa, we are all very different and dynamically different, and with that um, variety comes like new you, right? Like you, oh, I freaking love what my friend is in here, right? I really appreciate this, and I appreciate that, and you start, as you said, like kind of you take from each of them and their dynamics. And so I think absolutely I was a really shy dude once upon a time. I
Don't
was
believe it.
very introverted. Clearly not me anymore. And I think going through that boys to men phase with these guys, and going through the trenches and like building confidence together, because I didn't have confidence individually, but when I was with my friend group, I had like I had no fears, and I felt good. And then I was able to find my inner voice, and it really is because of them. Like I still am who I am, and you could go back to your upbringing and your parents and things like that that create a certain you, but your friends are like they're like the additional attachments that I'm trying to relate it to maybe a video game, but they're like they're the jetpack, and then they're the you might have a gun or whatever as your weapon, but they bolster something, they power you up. Maybe that's the best way to do it,
Oh
and they
yeah.
bring some new attachments to you. And absolutely, for me at least, I found that they influenced me in a lot of ways. Um, Academically too, many of them were going through university and stuff like that, and then I was like, I was not looking very far past what's this weekend entail, and how am I going to get my drinks, and who am I going to party with. And so part of that too, seeing them like, oh boy, they're like, they're going to have degrees in a year or two, like I better get my crap together, get my you
Hmm.
know myself going. And so without them there, I probably would have just kept on going to the clubs and having a good time, and wasting all my paychecks. So there's a lot of ways I think that they've influenced me, and they are definitely part of my DNA. And I could probably pick up a lot of things from like that trait I got from this friend, this trait I got from that friend. And it's really important. Now, like to go back to where this conversation started, I do want to touch on it. If the friend that I lost, he is he was the greatest, one of the greatest dudes I knew. Super fit, third degree black belt, ran a dojo. uh, to me he lived his life to the fullest. Like he lived to experience life. Like he didn't care about judgment. He didn't care about what other people thought. He loved karate. He did it. He met a beautiful woman, got married, had a kid, and he sticks with me. I wouldn't say more than the other guys, but when he passed, my one friend said, "You know what? Tim, he gave us a gift." And the gift was that we were cruising through life, right? We were just like, you're invincible, you're fearless, you don't care. Like, I mean, you care, but you're just like, it was the first sense of like, uh I have an expiry date. And it was an awakening for me to go, I can do more with like today and tomorrow and the next day, because he used to live his life like that. He used to, we go over to his place. He lived in Vancouver, and he's like, "Dude, we got to go get this guacamole." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's go to the grocery store." He's like, "No, dude, it's across the town, but we got to go." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna get in the car and drive an hour there and an hour back to get guacamole." He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because it's the best guacamole in town." And and you want to experience the best guacamole in town. And so he lived his life to the fullest in those moments. And when I think he was wise beyond his years. And so when I lost him, it's just like, bam, what are you doing, Jason? Like, you got to do the most with this right now, today. What you got, everything you do has to have purpose, because we're all going to go at some point, and you got to make the most of it while you got it. And so he is he is so deeply rooted into me because of that gift. And I think that was a pivot in my life too, where I really straightened up and wasn't a bad person or anything like that, but I lived differently with purpose versus floating through and just going through the grind, right? And just it was so definitely, when you want to talk about that, it's in me forever, what he was and what he did, and the impact he left on me. So
That's beautiful, man. Seriously, the fact that his presence was enduring and that his absence was a gift, I think, yeah. It's actually interesting. It's also another phenomenal metric of a friend, right? How do you feel before you meet the friend? How do you feel during your time with them? And how do you feel after? And if it's a consistent state of love and fulfillment, and you feel great and motivated consistently, it's a mark of a really great friend. And the fact that in their absence you can still think and remember and take something away, I think
yeah,
it's beautiful, man. And
yeah,
this actually would lead to my final sort of question, and I think this ties everything together. Um, you have a rich circle, amazing guys, amazing family, like people who come near you want to be near you. Um,
I hope so.
yeah, 100%, man. I mean, like it's a cologne shop parable, right? And you're just someone who like, Jason smells great. I want like, what's he wearing? Like, let's just go near this guy. Um, my final question to you would be on what, where do you weigh if you had a scale, and on one end of the scale is commonality, and the other scale is interests. What do you weigh? I may not have worded that properly. It sounded so great in my head. But I guess I'll ask the crux of what my question is. So if there's people right now looking through and they're trying to make their own litmus test, they're trying to come across meeting a friend, they'll hear your story and like, okay, Jason was this rock star, but then he had these diverse group of friends. What do they have in common? Like, should I be looking for people that are opposite to me, or should I be looking for people that have service level interests that I do? Like some guys like, hey man, I like Nickelback and Lord of the Rings, and like I'm using very 2003 references, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
there's guys that are like, yo, if you're not about this life, like I want nothing to do with you.
yeah,
Or like, should people be focusing? And in your opinion, do you put focus on the surface level connections, and are they as important, or the deeper rooted connection of like, if you go one step below, people can have different likes and dislikes, but if they
yeah,
fall within this category, there's something bigger at hand to it. And I feel like sometimes people will lean more towards the surface and be like, you know what, like if you don't like sports, you're like, what are we going to talk about? But then you
mm,
look at this level here, and you guys are so diverse in your backgrounds, but you guys found not only something to talk about, but something to live through and endure, and that lasted 30 years. So you've clearly have something here.
yeah,
What do you value within these scales? If you had to weigh them in a scale, I don't know what to label them now, but
yeah,
on one scale you have service level, likeness, and commonality, and on the other scale you have these differences in
yeah.
personalities and what have you. Why is this scale more than this to you?
I think it's the dynamics. Like if we're all, we all have the same interests. We all see things the same way. We all have those commonalities. It's kind of boring, probably. Like, it's like, sure, we all love sports, but I don't know of anything else different, maybe, right? And so I think diversity, if you can find it in a group, will expand past maybe one or two commonalities that you really enjoy and could actually bring more things into your life and enrich, uh, the commonalities through others. Like you're going to be like, hey, well, like, have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried cricket? Or have you ever tried kayaking or snowboarding? Right? Like, if all you have in common is hiking, well, that's probably all you're going to do, and you won't really be any more dynamic. So I think usually you find friendship through commonality at first, and then hopefully some variability comes out of that because then you gain more, right? You have someone like that's done it before too, right? So you're like, okay, well, this is uncomfortable. I've never done this, but they really love it and they're really passionate about it and I trust them, I should go try this out. I'm got to go try some new things. So I think if you can find that where you do need some common threads of interest, or else there's probably connection is going to be a little bit difficult. But I like variety in friends because that's what really enriches that friendship and doing things that you wouldn't normally do together.
So if I had to sort of picture like a diagram of what Jason values on a friend, it's trust, quality, and aligned expectation. And if these three are met, the surface level can be as different as you can imagine it to be,
Yeah,
because these three are your core values. And so you
yeah,
find that putting more emphasis in searching for these core values is way more important in the scale versus the surface level, you know, hey, like, do you like rock and roll? Do you like art? Like, what have you?
yeah,
And so is that diagram like an
yeah,
accurate sort of
yeah, yeah.
depiction?
You called it, man. Absolutely.
Interesting. I love that, man. And
Yeah,
and truest condolences for your friend that passed, man. It's a motivation and a beauty for me to sort of see you talk about your loved ones who have passed and that you still talk about them as relevant as they are today. Sometimes when people depart, you quote that Malcolm Moore quote
yes,
quite a bit, but
yes,
it's a second death, right? Like, sure, there's one
yes,
in their passing, but then afterwards, when you stop talking or remembering about them, that's their really second passing. And the
yeah,
fact that these people who you've loved and put your heart, and then who made you what you were, the fact that you've sort of kept them alive in the things you do and the way you behave, I think is incredible because as much as I had, like, I lost William Furtis, we wrestled together, right? And
yeah,
we were, so our commonality was wrestling, but our core values were like, we were comfortable around each other, we cracked jokes, we were there for each other. There was those base level things were there. Um, and then you sort of lose that friend, right? But the thing is, because of the impacts they had in you, you don't really think about it until they're gone and how you keep it alive
yes,
in your day to days. And I look at you, you've lost this sort of great friend, and I'm fortunate that my friends and my loved ones are still around. And there's often this fear of like, man, what would I do if they did pass away? How would I endure? And to see that you endure by taking the best and accepting accepting their less than best, and that's how you keep them going. I think it's a motivation, and a beauty for me to see, man, because
yeah,
most people I can see sort of collapsing or being distant from it, but you sort of keep it alive and keep the flame going, and
yeah.
you keep the coals, you keep adding the coals, and I think that's awesome, man. I guess we'll
Thank you.
end on that note of, what is your motivation to keep the wood burning? What's the motivation of keeping this going? Like, you had this time with your friends, it was super great. Your friend has passed, and you could do what most people do: put it behind the back of your head in a lockbox, throw the key out. I'll deal
Yep.
with it later.
Yep.
But you do this, and not just for your friends that are present, but the friends who have passed. What compels you to keep this going?
Yeah, well, yeah, the Macklemore quote to me, if you haven't heard it, is you die twice. Once when they bury your body, the second time when the last person says your name. Um, for me, I also reflect on another, which is we all have a pebble or a rock um, that we get to throw into the pond. Like everybody gets one rock to throw in the pond, and the rock creates a ripple, and inevitably the ripple will end. Like every ripple, it's going to hit the shoreline eventually, but the size of the rock is debatable, and how big is the pond is debatable. And for me, as I said, I feel like it was a gift. As much as I would trade in that gift at any moment, any chance I could to get him back, it was still a gift. And for me, it's about impacting through his story, right? So Movember for me it's not about the donations. It's definitely not about the mustache. It's about the opportunity for me. Someone just says, "Why do you do it?" And I get to tell them this is why, um, so that they don't necessarily learn about my friend Tim, but they learn more so about life is precious and we all have one rock to throw in the pond. And if I influence one person by that story, because it is a sad story, and they live their life just a fraction different than they do currently, um, to me, that is a gift that will continue through the times. And to me, it gives me joy to share that and keep talking about him, because I think he can still influence. What has happened to him does not stop him from influencing people. He can still influence people. And I'm going to make sure that his rock was a boulder, and I'm going to make sure that pond is the size of the ocean when I'm done, when my day comes, and that his legacy continues on for many years, and he impacts many people. So that's why you can hide from it, and you can, as you said, try to put it in a lockbox, but I don't know. That's also not good for your mental health. So take it, cry about it, um, absorb it, take the time. You never get over it. It gets easier each day, but try to take the negatives and find some shimmer of positivity that you can extend to others. And it takes a negative thing and makes it a beautiful thing, hopefully.
Incredible, man. I nothing even more to say beyond that. I love that whole image, and like literally as you're talking, I'm for those listening as well. I'm certain they're doing the same thing, just like the pebble in the pond and the proverb on it. I think that's beautiful, man. And I pray that that what you wish for is true, and even more so. So here's to your friend, man. Here's to Movember.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Hassan. We'll meet up again. Great conversation today. Real human to human talk. Appreciate you so much in these conversations, and can't wait for our next one.
Absolutely, man. Cheers.
Okay. Thanks, Hassan.